All right, we'll call the meeting to order. Welcome, everybody. Today's Wednesday, December 17th, 2025. This is our regular scheduled meeting with Hutch Utilities. Item agenda number 1 is the conflicts of interest by any of the commissioners today.
None.
Hearing none, we'll move on to agenda item number 2, which is the consent agenda, the minutes and the ratifying the payment of bills. Anybody have anything in there?
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Motion by Don, second by Tom. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Consent agenda is approved. Item 3 is the financial statements.
I don't have a whole lot. Just thought I'd mention operating expenses on the electric were up. We had $14,000 in solar array repairs this year. 11,000 in MPCA fees, and then 32,000 in Unit 7 repairs we didn't have last year. Transmissions also way up, but a caveat there is I used an estimate for GRE because we do not get that bill until the 20th, so that could be wrong too. Gas-wise, also had some high operating expenses. There's 30,000 for a CIS survey, 6,000 for a risk assessment, and then 14,000 we billed Heartland Corn, which we'll get that money back anyway. We paid 14,000 for 2 years, but we'll get it back. That's all I have.
Thanks, Jared.
Just a couple other items just to note. Nothing really out of the ordinary that stood out for November. Things were kind of business as usual. We were down a little bit on usage, both on the electric and gas side from last year. It was a little bit warmer in November. Anticipate that kind of flipping around here in December with the really cold stretch we had. But nothing really out of the ordinary. Couple of things just to also note. We're in the month of December now, so our wholesale costs are back up. Our winter and summer months are our most expensive months. So in November, our wholesale costs were $44.53 a megawatt hour from MRES. Going into December, which we're halfway through now, they jump up to $55.69. As we move into January, the new 2026 wholesale rates take effect for the winter, and so December's you'll see a $55.69 wholesale cost price, and then it jumps up to $58.87 for January 2026 rates. As you look at the 2026 budget, we talked about our wholesale costs are increasing, and so you'll see the next 2 months will be a significant increase on the wholesale cost side of things. Why that's important is our benchmark on the rate stabilization fund on the electric side is $54, and just our wholesale costs without adding transmission costs and things are already above that. So you're going to see, again, significant cost increases moving forward on the electric side. Otherwise, on the gas side, things are really stable on the gas side as far as our hedging and our gas program, so nothing significant out of there. Spot market pricing has jumped up with this cold stretch. We were typically in the low $3 range over the month of December. For a lot of it was up in the 4s, 450s. It's come back now a little bit with the warmer weather, and so we are starting to see some volatility on the gas side of things. They've been pulling gas out of inventory, which was no surprise with the modeling forecasts that were expected for the upper Midwest, and now some of that's moving kind of to the east region. So we all expect that to move up and down between $3 and $4, $5 here through the winter, as long as it's a general code. The only other piece that we've talked about in the past, again, just to highlight, overall cash balance is now down to $21.2 million. We had some large project payments. We had our debt service payments in November. And so I'm projecting at the end of the year we'll be down around $19.5 million is kind of where I'm estimating us to be, and so that will be our lowest cash balance since 2016. So again, you can really see the impact of these large projects and these large equipment pieces being paid, and Dan will touch a little bit on kind of where that project's at. But I know you guys are aware of where the cash balance is going. We've talked about that. We'll be having some strategic planning meetings, but just wanted to highlight, we'll see that over the next two months. We'll see some additional dips there. Otherwise, outside of that, those types of things that have kind of been highlighted, things are kind of running as I expected. Probably won't reach the gas overall, consumption numbers with some of the normal November numbers, but we'll be fairly close. And then the electrics, as far as from a budget perspective, is right on, pretty close to where I forecasted. So, any questions on any some of the financials or things that you've noticed in the financials at all? Okay.
All right, thanks, Jeremy.
I'll make a motion to approve the financial statements.
Motion by Kathy, second by Tom. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Financial statements are approved. Agenda item number 4, open forum. We don't have any new guests today, so we'll move on to number 5. Communication, we'll start with the city administrator, Matt.
Not a whole lot. We're getting ready for next year. Our 2 big street projects will be on Edmonton, over by Menards, and then kind of Sherwood, Bradford, over by Elks Park, back behind the hospital. So we're just kind of getting ready for that. And there's a couple of remodels that are going on in town. We'll have another busy year for construction, looks like next year. This year was one of our busiest years in recent history. So next year's looking to start the same way as well. So, but that's it.
All right, thanks, Matt. We'll go to divisions. Hey, Dan.
The control house was delivered before Thanksgiving to the Hutchinson station, so that's on the pad in here, and line crew got power and fiber to the building right away. The last of the circuit breakers were delivered here a couple weeks ago, and the last large item is the transformer, which should be here in a couple months, early spring. Other than that, just construction going on inside the site.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Still haven't gotten our proposal from GE for the repair on Unit 1. We're still waiting on that. Spoke with our representative today. They're hoping to have something by next week, but we've heard that before, so hopefully we do, and then we can bring that information to you guys. Down at Plant 1, we are experiencing a water leak on the cooling pipes from the cooling tower that we're trying to locate. So as we get more information on that, I might have some projects coming up on that, so yeah.
Okay.
So
Jeremy, as far as that unit being down still, is there a point where it's gonna start to become a concern for tolling agreements or anything, or?
Well, I think
stuff?
it's always a concern. It won't, not necessarily from a tolling agreement. The more immediate concern is if that unit's out going into the spring when we're doing the conversion and the swap over of the
Yeah.
substation where that is intended to be up. You know, we may run into an impact with GRE and the availability of generation in this region. You know, we do have some of the downtown stuff, but it may not necessarily be as much because they would like to see based on what the load might be at this time. Certainly if it continually goes on super long, like we ran into last time where this thing's out for a year or longer, then we run into, you know, some of that availability and resource adequacy requirements by the market. Everything that we've been told to date is one of the options that seem to be the most viable. You know, the caveat to that is we haven't seen the proposal yet, was doing an engine, a swap, and taking ours out and bringing something back in that we could run for 3 to 4 months until ours got repaired. And so if that is a realistic viable option, we may not have a significant downtime, so we may not have that concern or near-term issue, but until we really see the proposal, you know,
Mm-hmm.
I can't give you any more indication than that, so. The other option really is a second option. It's not super viable because it means taking it out of service, taking it back down to a potential shop, and most of us have been through that story once, and so
Yeah.
that is not our preferred method, and we've communicated that's not really a viable option for us. So hopefully this engine exchange or this equipment exchange, rental lease type of thing will pan itself out. But as soon as I hear something or we see the proposal, we'll certainly, I'll shoot something out to you guys so you have the information and then we can talk about it. But in the immediate term, that would be the biggest thing, right? You guys, as far as the regional grid and support while that substation is being transitioned over to the new equipment and stuff, so.
Okay.
Stay tuned.
Yeah. All over.
I don't have any.
Sure. We'll go to human resources.
I'm just working on a bunch of year-end items, and next, in the next couple of weeks, I'm be working on the pay equity report. So I'll have that ready for you guys for the January meeting for approval.
All right, thank you, Angie. Legal. Mark?
Nothing today.
Nothing? Back to you, Jeremy.
I have really nothing today that we won't touch on later, so.
Okay. Agenda item 6 are policies, both A and B. There's no policies to review or to change, looks like. So we'll move on to 7, unfinished business. We have none. Takes us to agenda item 8A, is to approve the 2026 non-union pay grid adjustment. Looks like Jeremy.
Thanks, Pat. So as part of the normal customary preliminary budgets moving into the next year, what comes before the commission every year is the non-union performance pay grid shift. Obviously, we have a union contract in place that goes from 2023 to 2026. So that union negotiation piece will be coming up next year as well. So kind of be thinking about that, who would like to sit in on that negotiating committee as we move into next year. But as part of that piece, we typically move the grid for the non-union employees, which is the smaller number of employees within our organization. And typically, we've tried keeping fairly consistent and equitable between what's been given to the union as we are with the non-union employees. And so what's been factored into the preliminary 2024 budget has been a 4% grid shift that coincides with the 4% union increase as part of that 3-year contract. Certainly the board has discretion to change the grid however they'd like. But we've tried keep some equity there so that we're keeping consistent with all employees within the organization. So I typically provide you some of the metrics that are out there so you can see how that proposal is matching up with some of the latest CPI-U and CPI indicators, Social Security. One of the little kind of challenges this year, because the government was shut down in October, they failed to release some of the latest statistics, or just said we're not releasing some of that. So a lot of this stuff is through September. I think there's one maybe even through August in here. But you can kind of generally see in that upper 2s, 3% range is kind of where a lot of these parameters sit. We also do upper Midwest salary survey data. We're a part of a consortium on that. We get public and private data for the Midwest. It's broken down by state and other things. And it's a long, lengthy report, but I generally try to kind of encapsulate kind of the range of where I see the private sector and the public sector up in the Midwest. And on average, they range anywhere from 3.3 to 3.7% increases that they're seeing based on the survey results coming back from participants that are in that survey. And so it just gives you guys an indication of where potentially the grid would move, how that relates and stacks up with not only nationally indicators, but also Midwest and more regional information. So, and then behind the board action form is really what would be the grid shift. The fiscal impact that I have in there has a range from $49,000 to $79,000, really is dependent on what people get for performance evaluations. So I always put in the highest evaluation in our budget so that we're for sure covered. Sometimes, I mean, obviously that doesn't always play out, so sometimes there's excess budget and stuff in there, but that's why there's a range there, is it really depends on the performance evaluations. And really there's just 2 managers that have non-union employees, that would be me and Jared. The rest have union employees, so it really depends on those. But that would be the general range of impact by moving the grid 4%.
All right. Follow-up questions on this, commissioners?
Not for me. Make a motion to approve the movement of the grid.
Motion by Don,
Second.
second by Kathy. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 8A is approved. 8B is to approve the 2026 electric and natural gas operating budgets and 5-year CIP.
So these are kind of the final numbers I had to put together after the November meeting, and with the input from the board of what things they'd like to see kind of shake out in the final budget. So the 4 big things that really changed on the operating budget side was really the suspension of the rate stabilization fund money, both on the electric and gas side. So I've added those revenues into the budget, both on the electric and gas side. And then the board thought it was prudent to move the cost of service study up into 2026 because of the large projects we have going on and because of where our cash balance is moving, to see what alternatives we need to consider other than just finding or bonding and financing. So I've added that, and you can see that proposal in there. That's another agenda item. I've put $44,700 in there, which is the cost of service study for the electric and gas side for 1 year of a rate change. And then I also put in a re-look at the transmission line. So I added that in, that $3,900. We haven't done that one in 2 cycles now, so the last time we did that, was back in 2017. So I think that would be good to also make sure that, because our operating costs are going up on that side, consulting, regulatory costs are going up, that I think it'd be a good time, since we're already doing the cost of service study, to look at the transmission line so that our rates are positioned well for customers moving forward. And then if we move along in the findings of the cost of service study, the board says, hey, we want to really look at a 2 or 3 year rate track like we did this last time, then we can add those in as options later on down the road. So I don't have multiple years factored, I just have a 1 year, and you guys can decide when results come back sometime in 26 if we want to add that information too. That usually takes probably another week for those guys to, they kind of have a lot of that already built in, and they just have to extrapolate out a few more years of revenue kind of change. So that's in there. And then we did add in an additional 10,000 for the compensation study. And I have that split 50-50 between the gas and electric division. Outside of that, everything was the same on the operating side of things. And then on the 5-year CIP, those recommendations that staff came up with at the last meeting in November, where these were just under 1.1 million that we could not do next year, that wouldn't sacrifice reliability. We've pulled those out of the CapEx as well. And then my anticipation is, as we work through strategic planning things early on the part of the year, staff will get back together and kind of shuffle the 5-year CIP, relook at fleet, and relook at some of those things. So we feel okay that some of that's been pulled out for next year until we can get through 2026 and see where we're kind of moving over the next 4 or 5 years with these projects. So it puts us in a better operating position with those 4 adjustments, and puts us in a better cash position by kind of pulling out some of those CapEx things and kind of moving those back at least for a year. So.
Mm-hmm.
And then I did also add some just additional notes in there. You guys had a little bit more time and wanted to look through some of the intricate components of some of that stuff for your reading. Any questions on kind of the revised budgets or anything that you guys want to see tweaked or changed? Or
With the adjustments that we talked about, looks like we're forecasting a similar year to what we had budgeted for 25.
correct.
I think making those changes just makes sense for us with the
Yeah.
projects we have coming.
Yep. All right, anybody?
I'll make a motion to approve agenda item 2026 electric operating budget for 5-year capital improvement program.
Motion by Tom,
Second.
second by Kathy. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Agenda item 8B is approved. 8C is to approve the cost of service and rate design study with UFS.
So this is the agenda I kind of just touched on, and so it's really in front of you today. Again, it's built into the preliminary budget, their adopted budget you guys just adopted, and so what I'd be looking for from the commission is to approve executing this cost of service agreement with UFS. They've done the last couple with us, they've done a good job. They understand our systems, in particular our transmission line, so it just makes sense to continually use them for our professional services to do this next cost of service study.
Okay. Sounds good. Any questions?
I'll make a motion to approve cost of service and rate design study with UFS.
Second.
Motion by Kathy and second by Tom. All in favor signify by saying aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? 8C is approved. Agenda item 8D is to approve the commercial solar agreement with Cedar Creek Energy. That's Dave, I don't see him here.
Yeah, he's not, so I'm filling in. So really, I'll kind of talk about all 5 of these in
Yep.
general, because they all pertain to this whole process. So back in September, the state basically opened up solar on buildings, solar and government properties, into a more expansive program. It was originally just solar within Excel's territory, but they had additional funding left, so they'd open it up to government agencies. And so since that time, there's been a mad dash to try to find projects that could be submitted to the state in order to get state funding, and then also potentially federal funding. And so we had talked about that, and you guys said, yep, move forward. So we submitted our 5 buildings that made the most logical sense where we had space. We did get approval on 4 of the 5. The one that we haven't gotten final approval on yet is the cold storage. We had to submit 1 piece of information. Dave feels that we will get that one as well, and I know the city has gotten a bunch awarded as well. So all things being equal, we'll probably get for sure all 5 awarded. We've got 4 of the 5, we'll get probably the 5th one. As part of the agreement though, or as part of this whole process, a couple things are going on. So from the state's perspective, these contracts have to be executed and a payment initiated before the end of the year. One, to show that we're actually in an agreement with a contractor, and 2, it also helps us try to get the federal funding dollars. So there are some things in some of these contracts that still need to be tweaked, and we can finalize those things, after the fact. But today on all these contracts, we would really need you guys' approval to say, yeah, we're willing to move forward. We've got the 70% match on the 4 of the 5. We can always decide not to do the projects down the road if we decide not to. It doesn't preclude us from anything at this point. The other piece that is kind of a time-sensitive piece is, in order to take advantage of the federal funding, you have to show that the contracts have been executed and that you've made an initial down payment by 12/31/2025 in order to have your project safe harbored for federal appropriations at the federal level. Anything that's executed after that is not eligible for the 30%. So we're kind of running along this state program and this federal at the same time, and it's kind of all getting mashed together. The state has come out and said, we've gotten so many applications so late in the year that we're not going to have all of them executed from the Department of Commerce back to you by 12/31. So they threw that out there on Wednesday saying, we just don't have the staff to get through them all. But they said, so you're kind of at your own risk. If you execute these and you put your down payment down, we're not going to tell you not to. Their best practice is wait till we execute it with the state. But the state is saying, we're awarding you the money because they know if we wait for the state, we won't get our stuff executed and payments made to the federal government in order to take advantage of the federal money potentially. So this stuff's kind of all moving and morphing daily. So Dave had met with Mike and I believe city staff to kind of go through a lot of the areas in actual on-site, because a lot of these contracts were the boilerplate contracts from the developers that they put out there, but they hadn't come out to the site yet to really see the locations and to make sure that these costs are good. Now I heard today that these costs are the costs, that they aren't going to really change or tweak from what they've proposed. There's still in some of these some insurance things that need to be cleaned up and some warranty and some things like that, but we'll make sure that those things get finalized before we actually execute an agreement and submit stuff back to the state. But to keep the process moving, because we're not going to meet again before the end of the year, I'm asking the commission to approve these 5 contracts in here. And if after the fact a contractor doesn't provide the proper certificate of insurance or doesn't provide some of the stuff that they need to as part of this boilerplate agreement, then we can decide if we even want to move forward with the project or not. So we still have that. And if we don't go forward with the project, the state will then look to reappropriate those dollars to somewhere else. So that's kind of what's in front of you. So the first one is the Creekside Energy contract, and you can kind of see some of the summary in there. And that one's for our main office building. I looked at our energy savings. I'm using our wholesale rate, which is going to be different than maybe some people that are getting a retail rate, but that building is in the ballpark of what that calculator shows. I estimate we'd save $3,500 to $4,000 a year on wholesale energy costs that we're paying. On the second one, anywhere from $2,500 to $3,000 on 2 of them, the 38 kW systems. On the 10 kW system, which would be on the inventory building, that's probably $800 to $1,000 savings. And then on the cold storage building, which we haven't got awarded the 70% match yet, but assuming we do, that would probably save us $1,500 to $2,000. So in total, if we did these projects and we got, for sure we're getting the 70% funding. I always say the federal, you don't know if you're ever going to get it until it shows up in your bank. But we have to be okay if we don't get some of the federal appropriation, or they decide to cut appropriations with the administration that's there. We should save anywhere from $11,000 to $13,000 in buying energy at the wholesale level for us.
Annually.
Yeah.
And what's the total cost of all 5 projects?
So the total cost of the entire project is $559,000. Our worst case scenario would be that we would, if we didn't get the federal grant, we'd have $179,000 into it. Assuming we get the federal grant, we would have no money into it, very little.
And we have a projected cost savings on an annual basis of how much?
I'm saying 11 to 13,000 in the ballpark based on output and degradation of the solar.
Okay.
That doesn't include any of the RECs and some of that, but our systems aren't so large that we're gonna get a lot of savings on the RECs. Because they're not gonna generate a ton of megawatt hours relative to what we need in compliance. But there is value in RECs if you have solar.
And our cost down is 55K?
So the 10% down is just to get it moving, and then the state will reimburse us 70% of that within 30 days. So again, we're already awarded the 70% of the project, so the worst case scenario, we'd be on the hook for 30%, assuming we didn't get federal funding
Okay.
for that.
What's our worst case scenario if we didn't get the funding? We'd recoup our costs with savings in how many years?
Yeah, I'd say on average, probably 10, 15 years, depending on the output.
Yeah.
Which kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
If we had to pay for the full amount, it wouldn't make sense at all.
Right.
And that's at our wholesale rate. Now, if you're a retail, like say where they're paying retail, they're gonna get a quicker payback because they're paying a higher rate.
Mhm.
So I'm using just our wholesale cost. And the average life of these are 25 years-ish, 25, 30.
Okay.
So, yeah, if it was if we were paying for it ourselves, it wouldn't make sense because
Mhm.
our savings are at the wholesale level.
Mhm.
But if we can get 70 to 80% or 90% at minimum covered,
Seems
there's some value in it, but
So we do know the 70% is approved.
yeah, we got a letter on December 15th. We did, and so did the city on a bunch of their projects that they got awarded the money as well. So those things are
Okay.
concrete.
Yeah. How many projects did the city have?
13.
Oh, wow, okay. And all approved?
Yep. So, I mean, there were 17 identified, we pulled 4 off, but yeah, there's 13 projects.
They were oversubscribed. I read that. Dave sent me so they got more than they thought they were gonna in that 3-month time frame. So they have more projects than they have funding left for. So, if some people don't do some projects, I'm sure they'll just reappropriate them to who's on the waiting list is basically what they're saying down there. So.
So on these approvals, do we have to do each one individually?
I think you can just do them as a group, just kind of with the understanding of Jeremy's explanation about ironing out the warranties and the insurance stuff, other concerns that staff might have.
The only other question I have is why multiple vendors?
It's what they could do. So they kind of narrowed down the vendor pools of people that they thought were eligible, reputable people that could administer the state program. Why certain ones bid on certain ones, I don't know if it's, to me, I think it was, hey, these are the guys, and then it was kind of just pushed out to whoever has an application, or EMS said, hey, we've got projects, and then they put those in. So a lot of this is boilerplate agreements.
Yeah, so it was really state selected the group of vendors, right?
Right.
Yeah. So are these projects timely then, or are we gonna have holdups?
Well, I think they're all scheduled to be done in 2026.
Okay.
The biggest timing piece for us is just continually moving forward to leverage the funding sources.
Yep.
But what I'm hearing from, at least from our development, because these aren't large projects, I mean, these are 40K, I mean, it's a row of panels, I mean, Matt knows that there isn't a lot of panels here. The anticipation is to get them all done in 2026, and then after the projects are completed, then we would submit for the funding from the federal government for their 30%. But we have to have what they call safe harbored by the end of the year, showing that we've executed an agreement and that we've made a project that we're moving forward with solar. So as long as we've executed and that we can show the federal government that the project may not be completed until 2026, but we executed in 2025, we're eligible for, at this point, 30% solar funding that's still eligible underneath the appropriations bills.
Okay. Makes sense.
My caveat is it could always be pulled, so
Right.
you guys have to all be comfortable with, hey, if they pull the federal, that the 30% is gonna be on us then.
I'll make a motion to approve 8D through 8H.
I'll second.
Motion by Don, second by Tom. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Items 8D through 8H are approved. We'll move on to 8I, and that's to approve plant number 2 substation load study with DGR. I haven't got there yet to see who that must be. Dan.
Yeah, that's me. With the large load coming next fall, we felt it would be a good idea to do a load study and fault analysis, focusing on plant 2 and 3M substations. That load will be served out of those 2 subs. Mainly because of the protection relays. We want to make sure that they are set accordingly for that big load. And they're also, DGR is also going to take a look at the metering and the configuration for that, since I'll have some special metering over there as well, so we can monitor that in real time. So they're going to help us out getting that set up also. Just want to make sure everything, all our ducks in a row as far as mostly because of the protection relays.
Okay, that makes sense. Care to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve task order number 11 to DGR Engineering for the plant number 2 substation load study.
Motion by Kathy,
I'll second.
second by Don. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 8I is approved. Item 8J is to approve plant number 1 substation 69-115 kV conversion task order number 9, amendment number 1 with DGR. That's a lot.
So the original task order number 9, DGR did a preliminary design for the plant 1 substation and a cost estimate. This is part of the Wilmer line rebuild where we have to reconfigure the substation down at plant 1 since it'll be a 115 kV line instead of 69 kV line. So they did that this year for us, and now we're at the point of starting to move ahead with speccing equipment, moving ahead with the design. Basically Hutch sub part 2. This is same playbook. They are also working with Litchfield, and they have to order 3 transformers, and they just got their bid results back, and it looks like a 3-year lead time on transformers. So we need to get moving already on doing the same thing so that we can keep this timeline in order for this power line to be built. So now that Great River Energy knows the timeline on the transformers, I'm assuming ours will be similar, 3 years, and they'll start now scheduling their timeline to build this power line. And so we don't want to be behind, and so we want to come in right behind Litchfield. And so if we get, probably be coming to you for advertising for bids, start this whole process again right away early next year. And we'd like to probably order the transformers by April. And then 3 years later, that's 2029 already. Hopefully we get them here on site. So the clock's already ticking.
I wish I knew how to make transformers.
So what they're doing here then is developing the bid spec for these transformers for plant 1 and just starting this process again.
All right. Any other questions on that one?
Sounds like we need it.
It's the next step in the process.
Yep.
Yeah.
I make the motion to approve conversion task order number 9, amendment number 1.
Motion by Don,
Second.
second by Kathy. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Agenda item 8J is approved. 8K is to approve paid family medical leave policy.
Are you ready for this,
Leave that
Andy?
one. As ready as I'm gonna be. Hutch Utilities is just looking to add an organizational policy to our current handbooks for union and non-union. So we have a policy attached. It's just what is required from the state of Minnesota, and I did keep it a little generic as far as since we're not going with the state plan, we're going with a private plan. But it is spelled out in there about all the rules that matches the state, and it coincides with that, and that we're doing a 50-50 split between employer and employee. Any questions?
Do I dare ask? No.
Sure, you can.
Yeah, what?
I don't have any questions.
Okay.
It's such a broad policy, and it's
Yeah.
just
It is,
open
yeah.
to anybody to
yeah,
read the
it's-
information.
Correct, yeah, it's a 4-page.
Is there any exemptions? No.
I'm sorry,
Any exemptions on this?
Not for us.
Yeah.
Mm-mm. No,
Not for anybody.
I mean,
Not really.
very minimum.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
All right, anybody care to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to pass approved paid family leave policy.
Motion by Tom,
Second.
second by Kathy. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 8K is approved. The next item is a new item added to the agenda. It's item 8M, and it's the Customs Power of Attorney. Gary can help us with that.
Yeah, thanks for adding this literally last minute. I think I was on the phone with Mark at 1 and finished typing this at 2, so. I'll just read it since you guys haven't had a chance to look. In August, we placed an order for actuators from Genesis in Germany, who we have ordered from in the past. They were supposed to be delivered to our office, but ended up weighing too much and have been stuck at the airport and customs for the past month. After a lot of back and forth, we have discovered that we need a customs broker in order to have them released from customs. ProCommerce International Logistics is the sister company of SEA LTL Freight, who we have been working with. The process requires a power of attorney be signed for ProCommerce International Logistics to conduct customs business on our behalf. Then I just threw in the best estimate for prices on all this is $250 for this custom broker. We already have $125 in warehouse fees at the airport and $150 to get it here from the airport. And we have no idea if we have to pay any tariffs or if there will be any, so that'll come later. So just asking you to approve the power of attorney for ProCommerce International Logistics to try and broker this out of customs for us.
So is it stuck at the airport in Germany or in the US?
It's here
Minneapolis.
for
It's
about
ours.
a month.
That's in Minneapolis.
And
Or
how good-
Bloomington, in one of their warehouses, customs warehouse, yeah.
Outstanding.
Oh, I was being held hostage.
I'll make a motion. Let's get it here.
Motion by Tom,
Yeah, I second.
second by Don. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The new agenda item 8M for the Customs Power Attorney is approved. Next item on the agenda is item 8L, is to conduct the performance review of Hutchinson Utilities Commission General Manager pursuant to Minnesota State statute. Jeremy, under this statute, as you know, you have the right to either have this portion of the meeting open or closed. So before we go any further, you need to let us know whether you would want to have the meeting closed or not.
Yeah, I'd like to have it closed.
I will now entertain a motion to go into closed session to conduct the annual performance review of General Manager Jeremy Carter.
A motion to close.
Motion by Tom,
I'll second.
second by Don. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? We are in the closed session.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.